After the commotion aboard Flight 191, the passengers finally arrived in Las Vegas on a different plane last night, 6 hours late. Let's go back to McCarran Airport and talk with two of the passengers who helped subdue the captain. They are Tony Antolino and Paul Babakitis. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You were there. We have heard much about this, but you saw it and you felt it. Tell us what happened.
Well, the captain came out of the cockpit unannounced, and when you fly a lot, you become accustomed to some of the formalities where they secure the forward cabin. So that was kind of the first sign that something was a little bit off. His behavior was very erratic. He was very erratic, kind of talking real frenetically. That continued to escalate. I think what was really a trigger that something was going horribly wrong was the crew had prepared an off-duty pilot to move into the cockpit. And so when the captain that was in distress went into the restroom, that co-pilot was kind of quickly moved into the cockpit. That was, I think, in my mind, a trigger that something was about to go horribly wrong. And things really just escalated from that point to such a time where he tried gaining access back into the cockpit. And that's when, I guess, impulsively, the four of us just jumped up and grabbed him and pulled him away from the cockpit door. And he started ranting about Iraq, Iran, they're going to take us down, say the Lord's Prayer, and then at that point we literally just tackled him to the ground and restrained him.
And when you did that, was it out of instinct or were you reminded, were you thinking about anything?
Well, frankly, having experienced the tragedies of 9/11 and being a retired sergeant with the New York City Police Department, training immediately kicked in. And when I initially approached who I first did not believe was a pilot, but wearing a uniform that resembled a pilot's uniform, I realized that this person was deranged, and that we had to take swift action, otherwise there could be dire consequences. So in essence, yes?
Well, you're starting to talk about how your training kicked in, and especially being a retired NYPD sergeant, a lot of people obviously very happy to have that on board any plane. But you look at the sheer size of this man. One passenger described him as 6'3", 6'4", 260 pounds, solid as a rock. Was there ever a moment, as the four of you jumped into action, that you thought, we don't know if we can keep this guy contained? As I understand it, he broke through some of the plastic ties you were given.
That's an excellent point. Yes, it was a serious concern because we tried to put restraints on his wrists. I actually tried to put the restraints on his wrists. They were inferior quality and defective. The pilots, they just were totally ineffective. The steward and stewardess handed us two sets of zip ties, as they're called, and neither of them functioned properly. So we had no other option but to physically restrain this individual on the ground until the plane was safely landed. We were able to isolate and contain him, and through coordination and cooperation of the other passengers involved in this, we were able to prevent a tragedy.
And everybody else seemed to have really kept their calm. Paul, you mentioned that you fly a lot. But at what point did you realize that there was another captain on the plane? You say you saw him getting ready, then preparing him to put him in the cockpit. How did you realize that was actually happening?
The captain that was in distress was in the cabin area, on the kind of on the cockpit side of the barrier that they put up. One of the flight attendants had walked back. That captain was sitting just 3 rows behind me, and I saw them moving him around and talking to him. And so he came into the aisle. Then we saw the distressed captain go into the restroom near the cockpit. And the cockpit door opened. The captain, the co-pilot rather, quickly went into the cockpit, and and that's kind of as quick as it happened. So, really, I think a couple of things should be noted here. The co-pilot really had he is the hero here for being able to recognize early on that something was going horribly wrong, and somehow to get him out of the cockpit. And then the crew really did a spectacular job at preparing the off-duty co-pilot to get him into the cockpit, so the plane was going to be flown safely. I think all of that.
Let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you to ask one question that is interesting to me. Did he ever change his manner or mindset after he was subdued? Did he ever say anything rational between the time you subdued him and the time the plane landed?
No, he did not.
He did not. Actually, I tried to coordinate that where I insisted upon everyone that we were doing the detaining him on the ground not to engage him in any way. He's an emotionally disturbed person, and frankly, you don't want to agitate him. You don't know what you're going to say that might set him off. So in the best interests of the safety of everyone, I said, let's not talk to him, let's be quiet, and let's contain him until the plane lands safely.
Paul Babakitis, Tony Antolino, good to have you both with us this morning, and good that you are both safely on the ground. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.